So, if you asked any military expert in early 1940 who the world's most powerful military was, do you know who most of them would pick? France. France had the biggest and most successful army. They had the best and the most tanks, their soldiers were famously brave, their logistical networks and fortifications were the best in the world, and their institutional knowledge and experience went back 150 years. But only months after those experts declared France the most powerful military in the world, their entire military and their country with it would collapse in the face of German invasion. Now, for us looking back, this is just a historical event, yawn, whatever. But for those that lived through it, this was an utterly cataclysmic event. It rocked the whole world, from the British relying on France to do most of the work beating the Germans, all the way to the French colonies, that for the first time ever saw the empire that had oppressed them their whole lives collapse overnight, most notably in Algeria and Vietnam. So what happened? Well, the reality was that the French military was a paper tiger. It looked unstoppable on paper, but in reality, the French military was plagued with problems. Their leaders were hopelessly out of touch, the equipment they had, especially radios and phones, were woefully inadequate, their huge, amazing fortifications were shockingly easy to circumvent, their air force was a chaotic mess, but most importantly, France was a deeply divided country politically. They didn't have unity on anything, and as a result could not agree or coordinate any meaningful resistance against the invaders. And that huge, impressive military was paralyzed into inaction, and then ultimately collapsed only weeks later. Now, there are lots of important lessons here, but one I think may be particularly pertinent to our times is when looking at huge imposing militaries, it is important to understand their true strength, rather than just the size and technological capabilities. Because if a country is fractured and teeming with political instability, all the tanks and planes in the world won't save it from collapse. Because ultimately, it becomes its own worst enemy, and that is especially true for any country that believes its own propaganda and ignores the myriad problems that threaten to fracture it at any moment. So even if you have the strongest military in the world, if your country is already on the brink of economic or political collapse, you might want to think twice about starting a major war, especially if you have spent years listening to your own propaganda and have a very warped view of your potential opponents. Hell, maybe Sun Tzu said it best 2,000 years ago. If you don't know yourself and don't know your enemy, you will lose every battle. I don't know about you, but I can think of a country today that fits that description perfectly. Anyway, something to think about.